Wow. Energy Secretary Chu says he made all the decisions involving Solyndra the right way. He told a House committee today no one from the White House ever contacted him to make a political decision. Joining me now, Republican Congressman Morgan Griffith of Virginia, who is on the Energy and Commerce Committee and questioned Chu today. Well, Congressman, what did you think?
Well, I thought it was very interesting. He said he was doing the right things, and yet when I asked him what the value of the building was that they built for Solyndra and what the value of the intellectual property that Solyndra had was, he couldn't give me an idea of what those properties were worth. And as a result of that, I had to ask him, if you don't know what the value of the building was in a fire sale situation, if you don't know what the intellectual property is worth, how could you determine last year that it was a good value for the American taxpayers to subordinate, and I think that was illegal, but to subordinate $75 million of taxpayer dollars to private investors?
All right.
When you don't know how much the property is even going to be worth.
Congressman, it's a very good point, and I want to play that sound from your hearing today. Here's what Chu, the head of the Department of Energy, had to say about restructuring that loan to put taxpayers at the back of the line.
We had two choices. We either had to stop the loan, which would make Solyndra go into immediate bankruptcy because with a half-empty factory, half-completed factory, or we could say we can continue on the contract of the loan, which was to build this factory. Once the factory was complete, there was Solyndra would have a fighting chance of continuing.
Well, at the Department of Energy, Chu here making a pretty good argument. They were between a rock and a hard place. They either made the changes to the loan or they had no company at all. How do you respond to that? What do you make of his comments?
Well, I think that it was just flat wrong, and unfortunately I think they made a very, very bad decision and broke the law in the process. One, we hadn't given them $95 million of the $535 million that they were supposed to get, so we could have saved that 95. Then they put us in second place for $75 million. That's a total $170 million that had they pulled the plug last December, the taxpayers would still be in a position to get. Further, when you look at the market around the world and what was happening in the solar panel world, there's no way that business could have made it. And they make the argument they didn't know that when they first gave them the money, but clearly by December, January, February of last year when they were making this decision to subordinate, they knew or should have known that this company could not survive.
Well, I mean, if you look, all you have to do is look at the email trail. Everybody at DOE,
yes,
everybody at OMB, everybody's concerned about this company. You know, they even tell the company they have to hold off on firings until after an election. I mean, it's astonishing when you really dig down on this. Is it time, though,
yes,
Congressman, for Chu to step down?
Well, that's a decision. You know, he's a very bright man on other areas, and that's a decision that the president is going to have to make and weigh over the next few weeks. You know, he clearly has botched this area of his duties. The question is, what's he doing on the other duties, and it's not my place to say.
Not your place to say. I'm surprised. The Republicans here across the board are being very shy about answering this question. He was asked today, though, in this committee hearing to apologize for the misspending, the bad planning. Here's what Chu had to say.
Who is to apologize for the $500 million that has been it's out the door?
Well, it is
DOE?
It is extremely unfortunate of what has happened to Solyndra. But if you go back and look at the time decisions made, was there incompetence? Was there any influence of a political nature? And I would have to say no.
Congressman, will the American people ever get their money back on the Solyndra deal?
Well, Secretary Chu told us today he expected we'd get very little back. I doubt we'll get very much, particularly since the first $75 million, based on what they did last winter, now goes to private financiers.
Well, you know, I've been calling on this show for these additional programs for green energy companies to be shut down, and I mentioned at the very top of the show here that there's something like $10 billion in open accounts with companies all over the country who are still getting Department of Energy money. Now, you Republicans are writing this like the best piece of campaign news you've heard in 5 or 10 years. When are you going to take action? When are you really going to go and try to shut this thing down instead of trying to score political points?
Well, the program basically ended at the end of September. Now the problem is that
there are two programs, sir.
Yes.
One is still
yes.
open. It's still ongoing.
Well, and so what we have to do is we have to take a look at that. In all fairness, we have lots of bills sitting over in the Senate. Even if we got a bill out of the House, I doubt the Senate would shut the program down. But you know, it may be worth making the effort because clearly the money is not being spent wisely.
Well, and then you guys could say that you were the ones who tried to shut it
Yes,
down.
ma'am.
Whether it works or not, you would be on the right side of history.
Yes,
you know, we're going to continue covering this. Congressman, I hope you'll come back. It's a pleasure having you on the show. Really enjoyed speaking with you.
Very nice to speak with you as well. Thanks.
Okay, coming up, new warnings about